Tell us about why you think Jordan Walker has been doing better over his last 8 games or so.
Well, the Cardinals, as everybody knows, he had a 12-game batting streak to start his rookie year. Then he had 8 rough games, and his play was uneven in the outfield, no doubt about it. Some of his throws weren't as accurate as you'd like to see, and he was asked to work on his launch angle, work on delivering more power. And so, since May 11th, his batting average is up 80 points. His on-base percentage is up 60, and his OPS has jumped 200 points. Now, granted, we're talking about from an OPS of, terrible 500 to so-so 700. So there's a lot of improvement. But, what we've got to remember is Jordan Walker just turned 21 2 days ago. And so, most of his career is in front of him. And he's, down in Memphis now, and he's got to get his game together and earn his way back up to St. Louis.
Yeah, and I'll get into this part in a minute. Like a follow-up question, but I really wanted to ask you this too, right up top. How's his attitude? Like, in other words, I heard from Cardinals fans, I'm sure you did too, where it's just like, oh man, that they've really demoralized this kid. He's probably going to resent this and this and that and this and that. And my answer to that is you're underestimating his intelligence and his personal character. He's not that kind of guy, but I'm sure he was really disappointed, but he got through that. So the best that you can describe what you know or what you see about his state of mind, his attitude, and how he has handled this.
Well, let's face it, who wouldn't be disappointed, right? You make a Major League club, you're starting every day, and you get sent down to AAA, and it's a surprise, and, yeah, your feelings are hurt. But, he, to his credit, it wasn't that he was moping or that he was giving at bats away or anything like that. As you said, he's a very sharp young man, very smart man, and in the long haul, a little adversity is going to probably help him. And, of course, nobody wanted to see it go this way, but I think the Cardinals really nipped the situation in the bud before he went into a long, long tailspin, because there was kind of this break in his productivity, and that West Coast trip gave them the opportunity to send him back down. And, we're going to see Jordan Walker back in St. Louis this season. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Now, is he ready yet? No, but the fact that he's had multiple hits in 5 of his last 8 games prior to today, shows you that he's starting to hit the ball consistently well.
Yeah, and the thing that, Brian, and please tolerate me, I know you will. And I know you hear from a lot of fans, too. And listen, none of us that have the jobs we have without fans. I love fans, but also sometimes you got to disagree with fans, and that's okay, too. But one of the things I've heard during this time, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Cardinals outfield in general is still kind of a mess. It's kind of like, well, he had a 12-game hitting streak. This guy was like a national sensation, and they sent him down, and their outfield isn't any better. And I get so tired of hearing this because that 12-game hitting streak, while it was really wonderful, and it was a lot of fun, and it was historical, but you don't make a decision about what's best for him going forward based on the fact that he had a 12-game winning streak. And even during the winning streak, the last 3 or 4 games, he really wasn't hitting. He'd punch out a single or whatever to keep it alive. In fact, the final 12 games before he went down, and that included part of the hitting streak, he had a .214 average, a .267 on-base percentage, and a .238 slugging percentage, an OPS 505, and a very high strikeout rate. 20-year-old guy, never been above AA, and he clearly was sinking. So the Cardinals would have been irresponsible to let that continue. They intervened, and I know it was hard for them to do, but they're doing the right thing for Jordan Walker, because we all want to see him a fully developed Jordan Walker who's not hitting ground balls at a rate of 60% and not chasing pitches at 40%.
And you're right, Bernie. And what some folks would say is, well, look at Tyler O'Neill's stats over the last 12 games, or look at Dylan Carlson's stats. Yeah, but they are what they are at this point. They're proven major leaguers, well over 1,000 career plate appearances, and there's nothing that Tyler O'Neill would accomplish by going to Memphis, or a Dylan Carlson going to Memphis. On the other hand, Jordan Walker, again, was 20 years old at the time, had never played a day at AAA. So, there's opportunity for him to grow. He still has the chance, a good chance, of becoming the best outfielder on the St. Louis Cardinals. It's just the time wasn't now.
Listen, this is such a worthwhile endeavor because we know that he's going to be, I think, a great hitter, and I'd rather see a guy that's got fully developed power and is going to be able to fight off major league pitchers instead of getting chewed up by him, which he was in those last dozen games or so before they sent him down. So I support the Cardinals 100% because I think when he comes back, he's going to be so much better. All right, tell us, Brian Walton from Cardinal Nation. Sure.
Hey, Bernie, I just want to say one other thing about Walker, and I agree with you. There's only one little aspect of this story that didn't rub right with me, and that was the whole launch angle thing. And because from the minute they signed, Cardinals minor leaguers have blast motion sensors attached to the base of their bats, and they measure every practice swing, every game, every swing in a scrimmage. So they know already what his swing plane is, what his connection rate, what his rotation is. They know all that. So it seems to me if there was an issue with Jordan Walker's launch angle, I wish they would have caught it beforehand. And that isn't certainly the only reason he got sent down. But that was one where I kind of scratched my head and said, wait a minute, they should have figured that out before now.
I think you're right. And in fact, I think there's a lot of things we could question about, even just starting out the season with him rather than letting him develop down there and then come up. I mean, that's what they did with Nolan Gorman. And I've heard Cardinals fans like really, really grumpy about this. And, on Twitter, whatever, I'm like, hey, just a question. Do you like Nolan Gorman? Well, we love Gorman. Well, the Cardinals, they kept him in Memphis for almost a month to start last season. He did really, really well. Then he ran into problems where the pitchers were chewing him up, and they sent him down.
Yeah, Gorman finished last season with Memphis, right? And there were people in the offseason who wanted to trade him, get rid of him. He's a bum. He's
right.
He's never going to get any better. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We're talking about a guy who's 22 years old. Give him a chance. So
yeah, and I know.
I think the Jordan Walker situation got badly magnified because the rest of the outfield was doing so poorly. If O'Neill had been carrying his weight, if Carlson had been healthy and productive, I don't think there would have been an issue. The problem is, comparatively speaking, Walker was still, hitting as well as the other guys because none of the outfielders were doing well, other than Lars Nootbaar, who was hurt in a good share of April.
Yeah, right. No doubt. Well, I love it. That was a great conversation about Jordan Walker. Thank you very much, because I respect your knowledge. Well, baseball in general, including the Cardinals, but when it comes to just telling us what's up with prospects, you're the best at doing that. All right, let's ask about another star prospect. And listen, man, we all expected Masyn Winn to have ups and downs the first year at AAA. We're all excited by what's going to come, but give us your progress report on him. Update us on terms of what you have seen, what you have heard about Masyn Winn, and whether any of it would affect his timetable, let's say.
Well, I think we saw in spring training that Masyn Winn showed that he can compete at the major league level. Granted, there's spring training games, and the level of competition isn't the same as regular season. But Masyn Winn really showed well. I think everybody would agree, both defensively and offensively. And Masyn Winn, like Jordan Walker, had never played in AAA. He didn't have a realistic chance of making the Cardinals team, given the wealth in the middle infield. But he started off very slowly in April. Only batted .223 and OPS under 300. But this month of May, Masyn Winn is starting to figure it out. OPS right around 800. He's stolen 11 bases in 12 tries. So, and by the way, defensively, especially when Paul DeYoung was down, he played a lot of second base. It's something he told me he had done in high school as well. And as we know, when players often get called up to the major leagues, they need to be able to play multiple positions. So as good as a shortstop Masyn Winn is, the fact that he can also play second base will help him when the Cardinals decide they need him. And unless there's any serious injuries, that's going to be in 2024. But this is an important growth year for Masyn Winn, and it's encouraging to see his improvement from his first month in April to his second month in May. Raised his OPS basically so far a couple hundred points.
Brian Walton of CardinalNation.com, and we'll talk to Brian about how you can read it, because it's fantastic. It really is. You can stay right on top of every development, and I think that's more timely than ever, because the Cardinals, as we all know, they have been funneling young players, prospects, guys they drafted and developed, they're signed internationally. I mean, they've been funneling a lot of those guys to St. Louis. There's a really young element even to this year's Cardinals team, and there's more on the way. So one thing you can do to stay on top of it, one thing you should do, is to go to CardinalNation.com and take out a subscription. The price is more than reasonable. In terms of starting pitchers, okay, we know that Liberatore made his way up. I don't think I'm crazy about him relieving. I'd like to see him in the rotation. But Who do you think's getting closer?
Bernie, it's going to happen. Let's face it. We know no team gets through a season with 5 healthy starters all year. It's just Libertor's kind of in this weird situation now where they don't want to demote any of the guys they have, but somebody will get hurt, something will happen, and he'll get his chance. And to his credit, he's worked hard at changing his pitching style, being more aggressive when he needs to be, and he found a couple ticks more velocity, which is always a good thing as well. So he looks like a much improved version of the guy we saw last year in 7 starts.
Yeah, and I always drop the, so I want to correct myself, and I'm sorry about that. The Cardinal Nation. Anyway, we'll talk about that again in just a few minutes. Well, if the Cardinals do have a pressing need for a starter, like who do you think's the closest to being able to answer the bell? Who do you think they'd turn to?
Well, that's a good question, Bernie. You look at that rotation, certainly the guy who's most experienced is Dakota Hudson, who has 70-some career Major League starts but didn't make the roster this spring and got hurt. He had some type of a sore neck, a neck injury that caused him to miss a couple weeks. He's just got back. Frankly, hasn't been impressive yet at the AAA level, but he's the guy with the most experience. The guy who's pitching the best on the Memphis roster right now is Michael McGreevy, the first rounder from a couple years ago. He started the season in Springfield, got called up to Memphis, has a 3.7 ERA in 5 starts, 21 strikeouts against 10 walks in 29 and a third innings. So McGreevy's not ready for St. Louis. He won't help this year. And, of course, the other guy that, everybody thought they might see, Gordon Graceffo, is out as well. He's on the injured list. So, and then, of course, we got the left-hander who has been on the Cardinals 40-man roster for a while, Connor Thomas, and he's kind of been uneven this year as well. So that's part of the reason that they sent Zach Thompson down, took him out of basically the bullpen after a few, bad appearances and said, go back to start. But that experiment not going well, at least in the first 4 starts. Zach Thompson's really struggled.
At the lower levels, but yeah, obviously you can include Memphis, but at the lower levels, if I use the term fast risers, not fast risers is like, they'll be in St. Louis by the All-Star. I'm not talking about that fast, but who's really turning heads within the system, like at a young age, when people are really taking notice of him? Who are the fast risers in your opinion?
Well, he's not. You can't really call him a fast riser, Guillermo Zuniga, the 100-mile-an-hour throw, because we saw him have a couple of brief appearances with St. Louis. He tends to be the first guy to get sent down because he has roster flexibility. But on the starting side, the guy everybody's been watching is Tank Hence. He missed about a month, had some kind of a chest strain. He's down in Peoria. Hence has got this tremendous stuff, but relatively slight of build, and for whatever reason, the Cardinals haven't allowed him to throw more than about 60 pitches an outing. So we want to see him take Hence. The first rounder, Cooper Jerpy, last year got knocked around. They challenged him at Peoria to open his career there. So he's a teammate with Hence in the rotation. Jerpy didn't pitch well in April, but in May, been exceptional through 6 innings and no-hit ball last night for Peoria. So there's a couple of guys that we're definitely going to want to watch and see them advance. They won't be, with St. Louis this year, but, maybe next. Who knows?
And I don't know what his place will be with the Cardinals or when, but how is Ivan Herrera doing? Because, we've heard about this kid, as you know, for years, and we all thought he was going to be the heir apparent, and that turned out not to be the case. So I don't know where he stands. What's your opinion on that? And we know that he's got talent, but what do you think his place is in the big picture? Because I can't identify it.
Well, first of all, Ivan Herrera is doing very, very well at Memphis this year. He's got a 7-game hitting streak right now, and so very, very hot. His batting average is 277, OPS in the 800. So, nice offensive numbers from him as a catcher. He's always been asked to work and, continue to improve his defense, and he's doing that. But, you kind of wondered this year when Trace Barrera got called up as the third catcher rather than Barrera instead of Herrera. But the reality is Trace Barrera is the guy that's on the bench and is the last guy, to come off. They still want Herrera to play every day, and I think the jury's out as to whether Herrera is going to be the guy to unseat Kisner as the guy who over time will continue to get more and more catching at bats as Wilson Contreras, moves more and more to DH over the next, 4+ years.
Brian Walton, what was your opinion? The controversy's passed to a large extent, although you got to take note that Andrew Kisner's still catching a lot. despite what the Cardinals said when they kind of covered their behinds and, oh, no, he's our catcher, before they brought him back after 9 days out of the lineup at catch. Talking about Wilson Contreras. How do you think that was handled? And what is your takeaway now that we've all had time to kind of absorb all of that?
Well, I think the unfortunate part, Bernie, is that this got in the public. This got in the public eye, and it didn't seem like necessarily everybody was saying the same things or on the same page. And it's just something that I'm sure if the Cardinals had it to do over, they would have figured out a way to keep it more in-house and deal with the issues, before they, got beat up in the press and people got put in boxes.
Right.
I wasn't there. I can't speak to who spoke to who when. But it's just one of those things where the organization, kind of took a black eye in the court of public opinion. To his credit, Wilson Contreras held his head high, and, he did everything that was asked of him other than play outfield, which I get why he didn't want to do that. But, you hope it's past him, and the Cardinals are playing winning ball now with Contreras behind the plate. And it certainly hasn't affected his offense. He's, continued to provide key hits.
Brian Walton, again, I thank you so much for the Cardinal Nation, but I think with so many interesting things going on in the Cardinals minor league system, people should get more informed, because I find it very interesting to kind of monitor prospects. What's the best way for our listeners or Cardinals fans anywhere that listen on streaming later? What's the best way, or tell us about the Cardinal Nation?
Yeah, come to the site, thecardinalnation.com. You have to have the in front unless you want inexpensive T-shirts if you put Cardinal Nation, but that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah.
But we have a combination of free articles and fee-based articles for those who subscribe. But we write up every minor league game from the day before. We have a link to the box score, detailed information. So if you want to see everything that happened in the minor league system the night before, you can do that free every day. And then we have in-depth reports on each of the teams each week, and that includes the backfields of Jupiter and the Florida Complex League. We have a reporter there as well, and as well as Palm Beach, Peoria, Springfield, and Memphis. And then I write up pretty much every transaction that occurs across the entire minor league system all year long and describe what those moves mean for that player, what it moves for the team, who's going to be backfilling for them, et cetera. So, you can really follow what's going on in the system both on a tactical basis, game by game, but sort of more as a strategic basis in terms of which players are where and why.
I think it's a wonderful site, and it's well worth the investment. And I know you've told me this before. I mean, you like basically gone a long time without increasing the subscription rate. And you also
we haven't had a price increase since 2007 when the site went pay. And there aren't many places in this world that can say that. And it's a good value. Certainly, we have a 7-day money back guarantee. So if you subscribe and you don't like it, I'll give you your money back, no questions asked. But I can tell you that doesn't happen very often.
Brian Walton, you should follow him at B_Walton, as in John Boy Walton. At B_Walton.
I wish I had $1 for everybody who tried that line, Bernie.
I know. Hey, I saw John Boy. Me and Miss Bernie saw Richard Thomas, who was John Boy Walton. Had the lead role in To Kill a Mockingbird that's been on tour nationally. He was exceptional, and he's a really good actor. Really, really good.
Yeah.
So, listen, we'll talk soon, okay? Thank you so much.
You got it, Bernie.
All right, that's our guy, Brian Walton. Yeah, Richard Thomas, man, in the role that the To Kill a Mockingbird film, which I revered as a kid, and I still do.
Yep, one of the best.
But, Gregory Peck, Atticus Finch in that film, won the Oscar for Best Actor. So that is pretty high standard.
Very much. And
I thought Richard Thomas would be really, really outstanding in the role. He was great, just great. And I've noticed, because I was a big fan of that play at Fox Theater in St. Louis when we went. And I've noticed, like, their subsequent stops that they've made, they went right from St. Louis to Baltimore, and they're still gone. I mean, he's just gotten people just rave reviews from theater critics. Like, it's good. He's good. Seems like a good dude, too. I know when he was in town, he went down to Pappy's a couple times.
Did he really?
Barbecued up, yeah.
Oh, good for him.
I think, we'll take maybe a break. It could be time. And then I said I wanted to revisit there's a couple things, but I wanted to sort of go through Adam Wainwright's first 4 starts, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but here's the deal, and Jim Hewert knows this. I analyze things. During the course of a month, I'll probably analyze every Cardinals player. Certainly have analyzed the heck out of Cardinals starting pitchers. So my point is, what is Adam Wainwright immune from that, or is it considered like a personal insult, or like, or that I have become like a irresponsible, evil person? I evaluate everybody in terms of baseball performance.